years as Narayana. After his death, Kamsa attained liberation and was promoted to Vaikuntha Loka. From this instance, we can understand that even a person who thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as an enemy gets liberation or a place in a Vaikuntha planet. So what to speak of the pure devotees who are always absorbed in favorable thoughts of Krishna? Even an enemy killed by Krishna gets liberation and is placed in the impersonal Brahmajyoti. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all good, anyone thinking of him, either as an enemy or as a friend, gets liberation. But the liberation of the devotee and the liberation of the enemy are not the same. The enemy generally gets the liberation of Sayujya, and sometimes he gets Sarupiah liberation. Kamsa had 8 brothers, headed by Kanka, all of them younger than he, and when they learned that their elder brother had been killed, they combined together and rushed towards Krishna in great anger to kill him. Kamsa and his brothers were all Krishna's maternal uncles, brothers of Krishna's mother Devaki. When Krishna killed Kamsa, he killed his maternal uncle, which is against the regulations of Vedic injunctions. Although Krishna is independent of all Vedic injunctions, he violates the Vedic injunctions only in inevitable cases. Kamsa could not be killed by anyone but Krishna. Therefore, Krishna was obliged to kill him. But as far as Kamsa's 8 brothers were concerned, Balaram took charge of killing them. Balaram's mother, Rohini, although the wife of Vasudeva, was not the sister of Kamsa. Therefore, Balaram took charge of killing all of Kamsa's 8 brothers. He immediately took up an available weapon, most probably the elephant's tusk, which he carried, and killed the 8 brothers one after another, just as a lion kills a flock of deer. Krishna and Balaram thus verified the statement that the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears in order to give protection to the pious and to kill the impious demons, who are always enemies of the demigods. The demigods from the higher planetary systems showered flowers, congratulating Krishna and Balaram. Among the demigods were powerful personalities like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and all joined together in showing their jubilation over Kamsa's death. There were beating of drums and showering of flowers from the heavenly planets, and the wives of the demigods danced in ecstasy. The wives of Kamsa and his 8 brothers were aggrieved at the sudden death of their husbands, and all of them struck their foreheads and shed torrents of tears. Crying loudly and embracing the bodies of their husbands, which lay on the wrestling days, the wives of Kamsa and his brothers lamented, addressing the dead bodies. "Our dear husbands, you're so kind and are the protectors of your dependents. Now, after your death, we are also dead, along with your homes and children. We no longer look auspicious. On account of your death, the auspicious functions to take place, such as the sacrifice of the bow, have all been spoiled. Our dear husbands, you treated persons ill who were faultless, and as a result, you have been killed. This is inevitable because a person who torments an innocent person must be punished by the laws of nature. We know that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the Supreme Master and Supreme Enjoyer of everything. Therefore, one who neglects his authority can never be happy, and ultimately, as you have, he meets death. Since Krishna was kind and affectionate to his aunts, he solaced them as far as possible. The ritualistic ceremonies performed after death were then conducted under the personal supervision of Krishna because he happened to be the nephew of all the dead princes. After finishing this business, Krishna and Balaram immediately released their father and mother Vasudeva and Devaki, who had been imprisoned by Kaṁsa. Krishna and Balaram fell at their parents' feet and offered them prayers. Vasudeva and Devaki had suffered so much trouble from Kaṁsa because Krishna was their son. Devaki and Vasudeva were fully conscious of Krishna's exalted position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, although Krishna touched their feet and offered them obeisances and prayers, they did not embrace him, but simply stood up to hear the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although Krishna was born as their son, Vasudeva and Devaki were always conscious of his position. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 44th chapter of Krishna, the killing of Kaṁsa.
Tanamostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Odi Priye Vansha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Oh. As you might recall, there had been an exchange between Krishna and the wrestlers. We're just boys, we're not fit opponents for you. And the wrestlers said, you killed Kuvalayapid, you've killed so many demons. How are you not fit opponents? So now they begin wrestling. And the description is there, the different moves that they made. Elsewhere, in regard to the fighting of Bhima and Jarasandha, it's described to be like dancing, the moves of these fighters. In that case, it was club fighting. Here it's wrestling. So this is another kind of engagement, pushing and throwing and so on. But the audience was dissatisfied because they felt that this was a mismatch. The Chanur and Mushtika were the most powerful wrestlers, and Krishna and Balaram were delicate young boys. So they were speaking that even in front of the king this is going on, and the justice has already left the assembly. No enlightened person will stay here. Then another lady was saying, just see Krishna's face with drops of perspiration. He looks like a lotus flower with drops of water. And another was saying, see how Lord Balaram's face is so beautiful. He's struggling with Mushtika, and so his white face has a reddish hue. And another was reflecting on the good fortune of Vrindavan and the residents of Vrindavan, where Krishna is always present, garlanded with flower garlands, herding his cows with Balaram, accompanied by their friends and playing his transcendental flute. The Brajbasis are always able to see Krishna and Balaram, see their lotus feet, which are worshipped by Lord Shiva and the goddess of fortune. We can't even estimate how many pious activities the inhabitants of Brajbhumi, and especially the gopis, must have performed to be able to enjoy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by looking on his unparalleled beauty. No one's equal to him or higher than him in luster or beauty. He and Balaram are the reservoir of all opulence, wealth, fame, knowledge, and so on. And the gopis are so fortunate that they can see him 24 hours a day. They can see him in the morning when he goes, first they say they can see him and think of him 24 hours a day, beginning from milking the cows and husking the paddy, churning the butter in the morning, cleaning their houses, washing their floors. They're always absorbed in thought of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada cites this as an example of how to be Krishna conscious. We have so many duties to perform, and while performing those duties, even ordinary duties, we can think of Krishna. And as long as one is thinking of Krishna, one is freed from all the effects of the material energy. And one becomes a first-class yogi, because the best yogi is the one who's always thinking of Krishna. Then another lady was glorifying the gopis. Their activities are the highest form of piety. Otherwise, how is it that they could see Krishna morning and evening? In the morning when he goes to milk the cows, to herd the cows, in the evening when he comes back, playing his flute and smiling so brilliantly. So in this way, they're all absorbed in thinking, appreciating Krishna and appreciating the greatest devotees of Krishna. And this is going on while the wrestling match is in progress. And Krishna, seeing the anxiety of the ladies, thought, enough, now it's time to dispatch these wrestlers. Just as with Kaliya, when there was too much anxiety, then Krishna said, okay, now we have to subdue him. So now we have to do in these wrestlers. So Krishna began striking Chanura with his fist, and Chanura was astonished, but he struck back, holding both of his hands together, like, boom. And Krishna just took his hands and took him by those hands and swung him around, and by centrifugal force, the wrestler lost his life. And Krishna threw him to the ground. And Mushtik hit Balaram, but Balaram hit him back. And Mushtik trembled, vomited blood, and fell like a tree in a hurricane. Then a few extra wrestlers came. They must have been foolish. Chanura and Mushtika were the best. And now the best have been killed, and the others are going to, give it a shot. Maybe they're brave or foolish, or both. And now all the people gathered began to clap in ecstasy. They were so pleased. Krishna and Balaram had, against all odds, that's even in ordinary matches, when what do they call them? The less favored person, the underdog. When the underdog unexpectedly comes out from way behind and wins, everybody's wowed. So Krishna and Balaram were not only the delicate boys pitted against great wrestlers, but they won. They'd smashed these wrestlers. So everyone began to praise Krishna and Balaram. The Brahmins began to praise them, and the only morose person was Kaṁsa. And it seems he went something like mad, because he began, kill him, kill them, reject Krishna and Balaram, kill Vasudeva, kill David, kill Nanda, kill Ugrasena, kill everyone. Ordered the band to stop playing and started barking all these orders. And Krishna became, as they say, too angry, and just hauled him onto hauled him down from his dais onto the wrestling platform below. And Kaṁsa, knowing that Krishna was to be the cause of his death, pulled out his sword and began wielding it here and there. And Krishna just grabbed him and threw him to the ground and started beating him with his fists. And just by that beating, by Krishna's fists, Kaṁsa lost his life. Prabhupada cited from Bhagavatam that even a saintly person is pleased when a snake or a scorpion is killed. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the shelter of the complete creation, from whose lotus navel the whole creation is manifested, knocked Kaṁsa's crown from his head, grabbed him by the hand, by the hair, straddled his chest, and killed him. Quite a privilege to be beaten like that by the origin of all creation. And then there was a big roaring, and then Krishna dragged Kaṁsa just to show that he was dead, the way a lion drags an elephant. And the Kamsa attained liberation because he'd always been thinking of Krishna. As soon as he got word from that omen that Krishna was to kill him, he couldn't stop thinking of Krishna day and night. While eating, while sleeping, he was always thinking of Krishna. Pratikul, his thinking was unfavorable, but still he was thinking of Krishna. So he couldn't attain Goloka Vrindavan, but he attained liberation. In fact, yeah. So now Kamsa's 8 brothers rushed toward Krishna to kill him, but Balaram killed them. Krishna had killed Kamsa, his maternal uncle, which one shouldn't do. But since there was no alternative, Krishna did it. But he left the killing of the brothers to Balaram, who was not their nephew, because he was the son of Rohini, not Kamsa's sister, Devaki. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So then the wives of Kamsa and his brothers begin to lament, and their lamentation is philosophically on target. It appears that they were more enlightened than Kamsa and his brothers. They understood that Krishna was the supreme personality of Godhead, and that although their husbands had been kind to them, they had treated innocent persons ill, and so they'd been killed. They'd tormented an innocent person, and so they'd been punished by the laws of nature. Anyone who neglects Krishna's authority can never be happy, and ultimately death. But Krishna was very kind to his aunts, and he solaced them as far as possible, performed the ritualistic ceremonies, or had them performed under his supervision. Then Krishna and Balaram released Vasudeva and Devaki, and fell at their feet and offered them prayers. And they'd suffered so much because of Krishna, but they were always conscious of Krishna's position as the personality of Godhead. So even though Krishna touched their feet and offered them obeisances and prayers, they didn't embrace them. The parents didn't embrace them, but just stood there, stood up to hear what he would say. All right. And that brings us to the end of the chapter. Are there any comments or questions? Hare Krishna. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Yesterday we were reading, excuse me, when Krishna was entering the arena, everybody was seeing Krishna as different, having a different relationship. And it is said that he was reciprocating. Now it appears that, I think it's also said that Krishna is always reciprocating with everyone else. So it seems that he is adjusting to everybody's actions. And then another point, it's like when throughout the history, we've been reading the Krishna book, it doesn't seem to be any point where Krishna is an aggressor or Krishna instigates anything. It's more like somebody's always instigating him, then he reacts. But he doesn't instigate an action, especially if it's violence or something like that. Is that a correct understanding?
Let me think about that. Does Krishna ever instigate violence? Doesn't seem so. Yes. Krishna.
To give dakshin to his guru Sandapani Muni, he killed Panchajanya, who had, just eaten his friend.
Who just?
Well, I think it's Madhumangala was actually Sandipani Muni's friend, so I've heard. I'm not sure, but when Krishna wanted to give dakshin to his guru, then Sandipani Muni and his wife thought he's such an amazing student that he should do something amazing. And their son had died. So they asked him to return their son from death. And Krishna went looking for him, and he jumped in the water, and he found this conch shell, this conch snail, a demon who had killed the boy. And then he killed him, although the demon hadn't really done anything to Krishna, except he had attacked Krishna's friend.
Well, that's enough.
Yeah.
Krishna attacked Kaliya. Kaliya hadn't attacked Krishna, but he poisoned the Jamuna. So it doesn't have to be direct action against Krishna, but duskritam, when Krishna comes and diminishes the burden of the earth and so on. So the offenders to the Indrari Vyakulam Lokam, the enemies of Indra. So when there are demons who create disturbances, not necessarily to him, but to the earth, to the demigods, and so on, then Krishna. Yeah, he acts. But Krishna has no reason to attack those who are faultless. That's not his business. Yeah. Something else? Yes.
a little bit along the same line of thought. I was just reflecting how Krishna seems to tolerate and hear. To tolerate in the sense that, like, he heard the person that was, yeah, Shishupal, exactly, and the person that was also riding the elephant, or he heard the washerman, like, he does, allow for a lot of justification. He could have just, not have to listen to the insults or the orders or the chastisements of different personalities. Even here, he's in one sense allowed Kamsa to express his madness, and all these demons to express their madness. And also he does things which are also from this world, which is like preparing, so prior to figure, he figured that the elephant's gonna, this is a fighting situation, so he prepared himself. Same with the wrestling, prepared himself, I suppose. And then here, yeah, the dragging. So I found it just an interesting thing, that the dragging of Kamsa around, to make so that everybody understands. And I'm just, thinking how often actually Krishna is doing things to, impress upon us, I suppose, tolerance. And like this, you mean? Louder? Yes. Yeah, my question, I guess, is like, is it, how much of it is it as an example? How much, for us to learn from his, how to see these things? He could be more like, I don't know, act without needing to justify things, but he allows a lot of, sometimes tolerating things that are difficult, or preparing, which he doesn't need to do. He doesn't need to prepare. He doesn't need to tolerate. He doesn't need to drag Kamsa around. But yeah.
Why does Krishna do these things, preparing and tolerating? One thing is Krishna is instructive. Another thing is that Krishna keeps pace with the role that he's playing as being like a human being. So Krishna, he doesn't even have to pick up, he doesn't have to hit him. He could just think dead, and that's it. Because just by thinking, he could kill him. But he keeps pace with the material world, and he performs these dramas to give us something to relish. These things are there in the movies. The characters. He throws his jacket over his shoulder and cocks his gun, and that's all like, yeah. So Krishna tightens his belt and performs these dramatic acts just to enliven his devotees. Just to enliven his devotees. He acts, what is that? Agudha Kapata Manasha in the first canto. Covered like a human being, he performs supernatural acts. Saharamena Kesha, along with Balaram. So he's instructive, and he keeps pace with, he plays the roles perfectly, whatever they might be. Something else?
Hare Krishna. In the beginning, it was said about this injustice that the gopis experience. So it seems that both in devotees, but also non-devotees, there's this inherent sense of justice and what is right and what is wrong. In some, it is more present, and in others, maybe less. In some, it is more present, and in others, a little bit less. Could we say that this is like the voice of Paramatma guiding us from within?
Yeah, everyone is guided by Paramatma, amatasmritir jnanamopohanamcha, according to their past activities. Just the demons are thinking, what was it that you killed your maternal uncle? Some demon was chastising Krishna. You killed your maternal uncle. He didn't take into account that Kaṁsa had killed so many sons of Devaki. So you, Krishna, you killed your maternal uncle, which is so irreligious. So everyone has their own sense of justice, but for those who are bewildered by the modes of material nature, their idea of justice is also warped. No one ever thinks he's doing wrong. Everyone thinks that what I'm doing is right. And that everyone else is being unfair, this is the way Maya works. And sometimes we may think we made a mistake, but generally we're busy justifying ourselves. There was a famous gangster in American history, Al Capone, in Chicago. He was running the mob, and they would traffic in illegal alcohol and doing so many things, and murdering their opponents and so on. And finally, they could never catch him, the federal authorities, but finally they got him on some tax fraud and imprisoned him. And he later, he was running so many gambling rackets and this and that. And they imprisoned him, and he felt that he'd been wronged. What did I do? I only tried to give the people of Chicago a good time. A notorious gangster. So everyone is thinking that I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. The demons are thinking that, what is that? Today I'll rid the world of the Yadu dynasty, Shalva, because they've done this or that. So yeah, the super soul. If you want to be what is it? It guides some people so they go to heaven, and some so they go to hell. Prabhupada quotes a Vedic mantra to that effect in Bhagavad Gita. Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dveshyosti na priya. I'm equal to everyone. I have no one's my enemy, no one's my friend. But tanaham dushata kruran sangsareshu niradhaman. Shipami ajasrama shubhan ashri shvebiyonish. If you act like a demon, I'll send you down to the lowest regions of existence again and again.
So actually, we cannot fully trust our sense of justice. We have to just rely on what we learn.
Our sense of justice can be imperfect. Therefore, tasmat shastra pramanam te. We should rely on Shastra, not on my sense of justice. My sense of justice can be warped. My sense of justice can be influenced. If it's my relative, I'll always think that, no, he's being treated unfairly. Or if my interests are at stake in some way, then my sense of justice gets what's bent in favor of my own interests. So my sense of justice, or just out of ignorance, it's an injustice that women are being deprived of the treatment they need for effective family planning, that is to say, abortion. Some people's idea of justice is offended by the idea that abortion should be denied by the state because they're ignorant, foolish. So we have to go tasmat shastra pramanam, not just on our own imperfect understanding, but on the understanding given by Shastra.
One last thing. So if we only go by Shastra, then there are also different interpretations. I've seen, for instance, in our community that there's some dispute, and then both are defending their point of view with Shastra. Who's right?
Who's right? Yeah, that's always there. We go by Shastra, but then the Shastra has to be understood with the help of experienced persons. So we let them sort it out.
Kaṁsa got the Sarupiah kind of liberation. There's like these 5 kinds, and Sayujya is the kind that devotees never accept, but there's Samipya, Sharshti, Salokya.
Samipya.
And is it, so you can get one without the, I mean, you can get the kind of 400 form body, but not be on a planet of Krishna or not be in his association?
I don't really understand how you could be. If you get the liberation of, you could, I mean, even that, who was that? Banasura got in this very life, he got a 4-armed form without having to go to Vaikuntha. But one would think that if you get one of these liberations, there are other liberations associated with it. But I don't have an opinion about these things. It's just something to think about, I guess.
Do you know that there was a reference when Chanora was thrown to the ground, it said like the flag of Indra.
And I don't know what the reference is. Maybe it's there in Chakravarti Thakur, but I don't have it right off.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I was thinking about the Kamsa's
Kaṁsa's what?
Kamsa's response.
Kaṁsa's
Response when
response.
when all the wrestlers were killed by Krishna and Balarama. So basically, like, it was frustration born out of expectations, right? Like, Kamsa was expecting those wrestlers to win, and those expectations were not fulfilled, and because of that, he wanted to kill everybody. Like,
He becomes angry.
he becomes angry.
And krodhat bhavati sammoha.
Yes.
When one becomes angry, he becomes bewildered. Sammohat smriti vibrama. Forgets everything. And smriti brahmshat buddhi nashat. And then loses all intelligence. And buddhi nashat pranashati. Then you're finished.
And similarly, nimittani vipritani is mentioned in first. So nimittani vipritani.
Nimittani viparitani. Well, that's more like omens.
Okay.
Nimittani viparitani. Yeah, you can say he saw the reversal, but nimitta usually means, or nimitta can also mean agent, right?
Yeah.
So his agents were all killed. So nimittani viparitani.
Yeah. And in devotees' lives also, we face reversals, and sometimes.
You speak very softly, and if I answer you just as softly, you won't hear a word I say.
Louder? Okay.
Please.
Okay. And in devotees' lives also, Maharaj, we see that there are reversals, or there are situations. There are reversals, and there are situations which bring frustration, maybe because of not meeting expectations.
Yeah.
So how to elevate the
Well, if the devotees just become angry, then they'll also get bewildered.
Yeah.
One has to think of Krishna. All right, things are sometimes go my way, sometimes don't go my way. So either, what is that? Tulya priya priyo dhiras. One has to be sober, whether one gets what one hopes for or one gets the opposite. What is that? It's in the same Tulya. No, before that.
Indra,
Siddhyo, Siddhya, Cha, Tata, Mana, Pamani.
yeah. 12th
Whether
chapter.
one succeeds or fails, all right, everything's up to Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hmm.
Maharaj, one more question from yesterday's class. So, chivalry as one of the secondary rasa, right? And generally we see that chivalry is with devotees who are Kshatriyas.
Chivalry is for the devotees who are Kshatriyas. Yeah, generally. Or even the Vaishyas can be chivalrous in protecting their cows,
Yeah.
protecting the earth. There's a kind of chivalry there.
But
generally, it's the quality of the Kshatriyas, yes.
But we also, like Bhagavad Gita says, that Kshatriyas are in mode of passion.
Yes.
So,
And chivalry is generally in the mode of passion.
yeah, so that was the question basically.
Yeah.
Right.
All this, you've committed an offense and I'm going to wipe out your kingdom and all of that kind of stuff. This is for the Kshatriyas. They are known to be passionate. Without passion, Brahmins, you commit some offense and they'll write a book about it. But a Kshatriya is quick to respond. And Vaishya would go to the Kshatriya and say, they did this to me.
But Maharaj, how to distinguish whether it is material mode of passion or like chivalry is a...
You have to see whether Krishna's interests are being served. Prabhupada would also be chivalrous in the service of Krishna. It's mentioned that we find that one time there was some pandal program going on, and devotees were on the stage chanting and dancing. And some uncouth person in the crowd began clutching at the sari of one of the Western ladies. How gross. Prabhupada took up a pair of kartals like a weapon. Yes.
Maharaj, may I add a little something to Prabhu's question? So, Maharaj gave the advice, you have to be sober, right? But there seems to be a gap between being sober and where you are right now. And when things come up that get you angry or agitated or aggravated, which they will, then I think one practical approach is never react. Just don't react in that mood. Count to 10, take a breath, whatever it takes to calm yourself. And then you can think of Krishna and then you can make a informed decision on the proper way to respond.
Yeah. One time, Rupanuga Prabhu asked Srila Prabhupada, is there some hint of what you can do when there's a sudden rush of anger? And Prabhupada advised him, you can think of Lord Nrsingadev. He said, because you're only a little angry, he's unlimitedly angry. The other thing you can do is log out. It's crazy what people do on the internet. Buddhi nashat pranashati comes real quick in succession. And then when intelligence is lost, then you start banging the keyboard and then everything's lost. You commit aparads right, left, and center.
Can't take it back once it's out there.
Yeah, you can't take it back. So those who want to be those with foresight may wish to close their account in advance before such things happen. log off of social media. The world, thing where you can have so many friends, meaningless friends who are not your friends, even friends who are your enemies. Anyway, we won't get into it, but one can advance quickly in spiritual life by closing down one's social media accounts and reinvesting the time lost in in hearing and chanting Srimad Bhagavatam. Otherwise, yeah. So that's another answer. And another answer is by philosophy. How significant are these things? How insignificant? They did this, they did that, they did this, they did that. How, what does that look like in terms of the breath of Mahavishnu? And we're all up in arms about it. So, what is that? Samstatiksha sabharita. The Brahmins especially are advised to tolerate. Not that we have to react to everything, we have to respond. As you said, you don't have to respond. Tatiksha is fine. Tolerate. Yes. Microphone. Oh, okay. You're next.
In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is being instructed. Krishna instructs Arjuna, but in a few verses he says, "Iti me mati," this is just my opinion. Then we also saw yesterday when they had a conversation with Chanura. He's telling him, "We're just small boys. We cannot be compared to you." So why does Krishna always take the humble position?
Because he's humble. Sometimes he doesn't take a humble position. Sometimes we find that he's quite, challenging. He challenges his opponents also. Both things are there. But when he's talking to Arjuna, he takes, "This is my opinion. Now do as you like." Krishna's, of course, his opinion is the absolute opinion, but still. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I was wondering, Srila Prabhupada emphasizes very frequently in lectures and his books that we should surrender to Krishna. But I was wondering what that looks like on a day-to-day level or a practical level.
Prabhupada says we should surrender to Krishna. What does that look like? That's explained. My goodness. Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam. To accept everything that's favorable for Krishna's service. That's part of a surrendering process. All right, I don't really feel like doing this, but it's good for Krishna's service. I'll do it. Anukulyasya san. If it's favorable for Krishna's service, I'll do it. And pratikulyasya varjanam. If it's contrary to devotional service, devotional principles, I won't do it. Pratikulya. So materially, we do what we like and we try to avoid what we don't like. But when we surrender, all right, Krishna, what you like, I accept. What you don't like, I won't do. And rakshasya titi vishvasho, and to have confidence that Krishna will protect me. And so I can act with that assurance. I don't have to be always in anxiety or, rakshasya. And goptritve vadanam, and Krishna will maintain me. To have that confidence. Just like our devotees, they go out and they do bold things because they think Krishna will protect me. And they don't worry too much. If I go to this far off place, what will happen? Like our devotees went to London. They didn't know anyone in London. They didn't have any money. And Krishna will maintain us. Goptritve Varnanam Tata. Then? Vishvaso, then Rakshasyati Vishvaso, Goptritve Varnam Tata. Then? Is that it? That's it. We got them all. So, following all these principles, one at a time, one event at a time. Surrendering, Prabhupada calls that a surrendering process. It's not just that we come up and sign a paper, now I surrender, I'm yours for the rest of my life, and then 3 days later, something else. But there's a surrendering process. In one sense, every time we're chanting our 16 rounds, it's a surrendering process. We're first of all surrendering to this principle that yes, I'll chant these rounds as promised. And then with each mantra, it's a surrendering process. My mind can go where it wants to go, or it can go where it's best for it to go. That's surrender. It wants to go here, it wants to go there, but we'll bring it back under control. Is that okay? Okay, we're at the end of our time. Yes, Shirini?
I was just thinking when Prabhu was asking about Krishna taking a humble position, I've never interpreted it as a humble position. I always read it as he's tricking everyone. Because just like, how sometimes we've seen in movies or whatever, there are these guys that are expert pool players, right? They're really expert at, hustlers. They're expert at pool. And they'll walk into some pool parlor and they'll stand around and they'll go, and then they'll like pretend that they don't know what they're doing, and then they'll make a really big bet, and then they'll pull out all the stops. And I don't think it's that they were humble. And Krishna, similarly, most of the people knew of he had just done so many things. He must have walked into the arena covered with still the blood from the elephant, and, he had just done all that. He wasn't just a little cowherd boy, a young boy. So I always took it that he was just saying that, like, trickery.
Certainly when he's speaking in the wrestling arena, it's, what would you say? It's ingenuous, really. That's the word you'd use in your legal brief. It's ingenuous. Krishna said, we're just little...
Disingenuous, right?
Disingenuous, yes. Disingenuous. That we're just young boys. We play in the forest and wrestle among ourselves, but we're really not top-class wrestlers like you. I'm only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I just knocked off this elephant. So yeah, there's a sort of humor to it.
I liked your mention of like action movies and stuff earlier, when you were mentioning that, Krishna could just kill them by thinking, but he makes it all like attractive and interesting the way he's the original action movie director who, before they invented action movies, he was already doing,
Yes. Thank you.
Letting the other person draw first, because he's more out.
Okay, Kirtan. Who's leading? You want to lead? One tune? Sweet and melodious? Okay, we'll give it a go.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. एवं विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रचार्य स्तोत्र श्री श्रीमद AC भक्ति वेदांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नमो विष्णुपाद परमहंस प्रचार्य स्तोत्र श्री श्रीमद AC भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। यमुना मैया की जय, गंगा मैया की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, सामवेद गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल।